Canada's finance ministry has released a report that has raised serious questions about the country's approach to terror financing. The report admits to major gaps in the system, loopholes that allow extremist networks to move money with relative ease. It warns that charities, informal money transfers and even legitimate businesses can be exploited to fund terror activity. This revelation comes against the backdrop of a long-standing concern, the presence of Khalistani groups on Canadian soil. For years, India has accused Ottawa of giving space, political, financial and ideological, to such outfits. New Delhi has consistently flagged how these groups raise funds, spread propaganda and even attempt to intimidate Indian diplomats. Yet Canadian governments, past and present, have often appeared hesitant to act firmly, citing political compulsions, diaspora influence and domestic vote bank politics. India has also linked these groups to violent acts and plots beyond Canadian borders, making it not just a bilateral concern but a global security challenge. With the Finance Ministry's own report now confirming vulnerabilities in terror financing, the question then is Canada looking away from extremist funding flows, or is it unable to control it? Joining us now, in fact, is Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, former diplomat. We also have Major General G.T. Dwivedi, Strategic Affairs Analyst, live with us. Surinder Singh Lali, Foreign Affairs Expert, joins us live. Pathikrit Payan, Foreign Affairs Expert, is also with us on the broadcast. Let me make a start with you first, Ambassador Mukherjee. What do you make of Canada finally acknowledging what India has been telling them all along and what others have as well, that Khalistani extremists are existing on their soil and there is funding as well happening for them, which is going unchecked?
Well, this is a major vindication of India's position. In fact, it was the repeated articulation of this position which was repeatedly denied by Trudeau, who went to every possible length that you can think of to harass India, to deny India justice on this matter, going after our High Commissioner, who we finally recalled him, and our Consul General, both in Toronto and in Vancouver. This is a vindication, and it raises very troubling questions that how can a vibrant multi-party democracy like Canada allow extremist funding on its soil and allow extremist funding to determine the results of its election process. In other words, the terrorist funding by the Khalistanis in a way is influencing or is an effort to influence the Canadian voter, and therefore is detracting from what we call in democracies a free and fair election. This is absolutely a revelation, and I'm sure it's going to have a huge impact across Canada. It certainly will have an impact on Canadian-Indian relations. We would be grateful that the Canadians have finally acknowledged it. It's an indication that the present Canadian dispensation at least is much more transparent and honest about such issues which they tried to deny in the past. But more than that, I think it's also an indication that all is not well in Canada as far as election funding is concerned on one hand, and on the other to allow tiny little marginalized groups to have a larger than life role in Canadian domestic politics, which also impacts therefore Canada's external politics. Certainly it does as far as India is concerned.
Okay, let me in fact also quickly join at this point Major Dwivedi. Major Dwivedi, what do you make of this report and its ramifications by the Finance Ministry there, and what do you hope for will be the action taken now by the Canadian administration on its contents?
Well, Uday, it was an open secret that the terrorist groups are operating with impunity in Canada, and they have the political patronage, especially True Justice Party was heavily dependent upon the likes of Jagmeet Singh, New Democratic Party, and therefore they were, I think, party to it, accomplices to these activities of the Khalistani terrorists and the Khalistani groups. Point number two, that we need to understand how these groups are operating, how they are deeply embedded, and why they are able to control the politics in Canada. Firstly, these groups are part of the larger global network and they have, they hobnob with likes of Hamas and Hezbollah, and they almost coerce the charity organization. They indulge in crowdfunding, and the whole network work is well-oiled network. Secondly, how these terrorists and the organization have been influential or impacting the India, particularly Punjab, because I come from the state, that they make full use of opportunity whenever possible. Like there was formal education, I think funds flowed very freely, and at one point of time, this whole movement was hijacked by these Khalistani or these radical elements. Now the point is, as they are deeply embedded into the Canadian politics, and especially during Trudeau Justin's time, at least it has come in the open. At least Canadian agencies have accepted that this is a risk, and this risk needs to be handled, if not mitigated. So what I feel is that will be certain amount of action taken on these groups. At least their activities will be curtailed to certain extent. The second point is, as relations between India and Canada are improving, so therefore this also will be one of the factors. At least India will be able to control or close the tap or tighten the tap of the funds that flow into our country. And finally, I think diplomacy has to be on the front foot, because our relations with Canada had taken a hit, and these relations need to be brought back and ensure that these networks are at least closely followed, and wherever possible, their activities are curtailed in the near future. Uday.
All right, let me in fact quickly take that to Surinder Singh Lalli as well. Surinder Singh Lalli, what do you make of this report? Also, do you believe this is a U-turn in the Canadian administration's policy so far to turn a blind eye to such elements who exist on their soil and the finances which come in for them as well?
Thank you, Uday. Uday, I don't think the Canadian government even had to go that far to prepare this report. Not only is it the worst kept secret, only if they would have watched our debates on NewsX, which we've been doing for the last 2 years, I think Justin Trudeau would have not lost his election and his reputation so badly as it did. Uday, I still await the justice and closure on the Air India 182 Panish bombing. 331 people died, and the same Babbar Khalsa was also named in this report. But it personally pains me to see how these individuals who do not represent the Sikhs at all, because 87% of us live in India, and I don't know what authorizes them or empowers them to use the word Sikhs for justice and referendum, because they do not represent in any manner any form of Sikhism. They are simply fringe rogues who have been involved in these nefarious activities, and they have been in bed with the Canadian politicians and fund them, and that's probably the reason from Trudeau Senior to now they have been conveniently quiet. But I think now that the writing's on the wall, and I hope Mark Carney does the needful. But do they have another point to share? Where is Sikhs for Justice today now that Punjab is underwater? Where is Babbar Khalsa? Where is World Sikh Organization? Nowhere. Why? Because they have nothing to do with the actual cause of Sikhism. They're only using Sikhism as a front to hide behind the religion and the emotions. And Punjab, as Dwivedi rightly said, from Punjab is not really a state, it's an emotion. So they've been exploiting the emotions of the Punjabis to do such illegal activities, only to work in connivance with the deep state in the Western economies, because they try and they want to keep India on the back foot. And Vijay, one more point I need to make is that I want to make an appeal through your channel to individuals who might be sympathetic towards them, or to even other people, all Indians in India. Please be very judicious with using the K word against in other Sikhs, 87% of them, because we do not subscribe to us. Had they to do anything with Sikhism, not that itself is a referendum, but they would have come up to what Punjab is going through right now. And by the way, Punjab is not even 100% Sikh. So when I say Punjab, I'm not talking about the Sikhs, I'm talking about everybody who lives in Punjab. So these are Johnnies who've been using the Canadian polity for a while, but now that it's the writing on the wall, and I really, really hope that Canadians can get up and smell the coffee and get back to, of the relationship between two large English-speaking democracies, which has such a large diaspora there.
Okay, let me in fact take that to you as well, Pathikrit Pine, on on this, of course, contents of this report. What do you make of the report? What do you believe its ramifications really are going to be? Do you believe it does uncover the modus operandi of how these elements are funded? And what do you hope for will be now the action taken now that this report and its contents are out in full public view?
So, Uday, a couple of things. It's pretty surprising that something like this has been going on and FATF had no idea about it. That itself is surprising. So, the FATF was aware of it. The Canadian government was aware of it. It probably they didn't want it to come out. So, if you look at what they have defined it as, politically motivated violent extremist organizations, and they have equated, Khalistani violent extremist organizations like Khalsa International and International Sikh Youth Federation in the same category with Hamas and Hezbollah. Now, the question is why? Why have they done it? Is it that suddenly there is a change of heart? Is it that suddenly Canada has given away with their, almost de facto policy of allowing Canada to be used as a ground for secessionist activities which will harm other countries? No. The reason is this. I think whatever these organizations were doing in Canada, they were allowed to do it, and they became so powerful that today they have started, threatening the sovereignty of the very state called Canada. That's the reason. That's nothing else. I think they care a damn about what these organizations do in other countries. They don't care about what these organizations do in India. They can support them till the last breath. They will do everything possible. And now that certain elements within United States are also pretty unhappy with us, because we have been genuinely honest and we are a sovereign country and we have shown it to them that we will not be your lackey. I will not be surprised if Canada's big brother down south uses some of these elements to create more problems in some of the states of India, especially in Punjab. But the issue is, for Canada, they realize that the situation might go out of control in many parts of Canada. At least in some parts of Canada, it's already like that. So that is why this is a warning, not a change of heart, but in terms of what the Canadians should do in terms of ensuring that internal security of Canada is not compromised. Otherwise, if you think, or if we suddenly think that these organizations, Canada will be very harsh on them and they have suddenly realized how bad they are, and so they will join hands with India to fight them, absolutely not. So all that will be done is this. I will not be surprised if there are parallel communications that, look, I don't care what you do in India. I mean, that's the communication from the Canadians that will be to these organizations, but don't do anything within Canada which can hamper our internal, sovereignty and integrity of the country. So we have to understand this is how these organizations operate. If we think that Five Eyes intelligence, which was so much concerned about a plumber named Hardeep Singh Nijjar being, somehow getting killed by whoever we don't know. The whole Five Eyes intelligence apparatus was behind it. That shows that it's not just Canada. This is this whole cartel ecosystem which is using these elements. I don't think some of those other elements of Five Eyes will be very happy if suddenly there are censure on these organizations by the Canadian government. So it's far more complex than what it appears. But they have started threatening internal security of Canada. That's the reason you see this report.
Okay, let me in fact quickly take that back across to you, Ambassador Mukherjee, on what you hope will be now the action taken by the Canadian government if they are indeed serious about tackling this problem. Also, do you also hope for action to be taken by FATF and other financing bodies as well? Like Pathikrit was just mentioning, it's pretty shocking that they haven't seen this as yet. What now? Obviously, finally, the Finance Ministry of Canada is saying.
Well, if their internal security is gradually getting threatened, then surely they will take action. And because it's a very small group, but it has been allowed to grow in a manner by which it controls political power in Canada by deciding on the coalitions which govern Canada. In other words, they have been allowed a much larger political space than they deserve. even if they were not an extremist group. They have been allowed a huge amount of political space. That is going to get squeezed, and definitely, if they are considered to be a threat to internal security, there will be a crackdown. I don't know about FATF. I'm not so confident. I am not confident about justice being given to those who died in Kanishka. It's well known who is responsible. A fair and Canadian investigation was conducted. The perpetrators were named. NewsX did a whole series of excellent programs on this issue. I think it's about a year ago, but we are yet to see any concrete action. So I would await and see what they would do with regard to justice for those who died in Kanishka, including Canadian citizens. There were a lot of Canadian citizens. And FATF, I'm not so sure whether that is going to happen, at least in the near future. But even if there is some kind of a crackdown, some kind of a squeeze, it would be a very welcome development, and it would be a positive boost to India-Canada relations, which is seeing an upward turn. High commissioners have been named. There is some kind of effort to resurrect a very healthy bilateral business partnership, trade partnership, efforts to find new markets, because Canada too has been hit by tariffs, by Trump, etc. So we have to wait and see. But I think this is definitely, it will have a positive impact on the bilateral relationship with India. Uday.
Okay, let me in fact quickly also go back to you, Major General Dwivedi, on finally, do you believe this is also a reset of India-Canada ties? This is the proof as well that it wasn't mere rhetoric from the part of the Canadian administration when Mark Carney said that he will look at this issue and also was serious about the reset in ties when that meeting took place with Prime Minister Modi in Canada itself. Do you believe this is further proof that his administration is serious in resetting this relationship?
Well, Uday, I may not call it reset, but definitely there is a certain amount of rapprochement in this arena, because our ties had really deteriorated, and I'm sure the new Prime Minister Mark Carney would be interested in getting the ties back to the normal, or at least as vibrant as they were before. But there are 2-3 issues that we need to understand how far the Canadian government can go. First and foremost, these elements now, they are quite deeply embedded, and it will be very difficult to uproot them because they have developed political linkage across the spectrum. And let me tell you, they enjoy certain amount of tacit support among the Sikh diaspora in Canada. Secondly, these organizations cannot just be isolated. That okay, Canadian government says that you don't create trouble here, but you can manage the affairs outside. That doesn't work, because these organizations are very closely interlinked, and they get certain amount of political patronage, like it from Punjab. There are certain cells, and when the new young immigrant go, they fall into trap of these organizations, and they act as nurseries for the organization. The third very important point that I like to bring across is that these organizations need actually very close monitoring, because the point is that their networks are all over and they are not confined to any geographic region. And my final point is, Uday, it is well known that the very masters who actually help the organization to grow, these organizations begin to bite back. Now this is exactly what is happening in Canada, that they are biting back all these, so their handlers or their masters are now feeling the pinch, because that is impacting the internal security dynamics of Canada. So I think the Canadian government will have to take a very considered stand. They cannot have these organizations operating two domains, that internally you do not create problems, but externally you carry on the activity. That doesn't work. I think they'll have to go very firmly, and I feel definitely the Indo-Canadian relations will see an upswing, because they had taken a deep hit, and both the governments are keen that relations are on track, but this issue of terrorism and the radical element has to be handled in a very deft manner, because it cannot be blown away in a jiffy. It has to be long-term effort with it.
And that's something, that we've had a no-nonsense approach towards. Do you believe this is just the tip of the iceberg, though? There is a need for further probing of the modus operandi, of where the financing comes, who else is responsible, who perhaps on Canadian soil are responsible, who maybe in India too are doing it, so that that information can be shared with us as well, Surinder Lali. Do you hope for further follow-ups to this report as well and initial probe?
Uday, let me take it from the top. Uday, it's been a mindset issue. Ujjwal Dosanjh, ex-premier of British Columbia, he was on record saying that when Pierre Trudeau Sr. was told that there are two Johnnies from Babbar Khalsa who are going into the Canadian hinterland and woods and checking a bomb, he said it's okay, let the green turban fight the yellow turban or the brown, because Uday, with due respect, and I do believe in dignity of labor, but a lot of people who went to Canada had gone for menial jobs. So these Goras actually looked down upon them. They said as long as they keep, their mischief into their ghettos that they live in, it doesn't matter to them. And that's why, they have been sweeping it under the carpet. Uday, now, even with the southern neighbor, look at the kind of statements Navarro, Lindsey Graham and Howard Lutnick is making. That ought to give you an idea of the mindset that, India's a dead economy, they will come and apologize and la 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 la. Uday, it's a mindset problem. They are at unease that a brown race that got independent just in 1947 is the fourth largest economy and is coming up in a manner in which now they cannot choose to ignore us. So this mindset issue has been there then and even now. You can see with the mercurial, mercantilist, megalomaniac monarch, which is Donald Trump, who used to always think that, all browns,
right,
to demonize them, they're all immigrants and they're all criminals, which 37% of the CEOs in America are Indians.
Okay. I'm afraid I've run totally out of time. 30 seconds to Pathikrit, last word.
Well, I think we should not lower our guard. We should continue doing whatever the government of India has done. If you look at the situation in the United States, I echo what Mr. Lali Singh has said. We have to be very careful. At the same time, we have to understand there should not be needless persecution of Sikhs in Canada just because these organizations are doing bad. But because, as Lali Singh said, majority of the Sikh community do not agree to what these people do. Sometimes they have to just remain silent and obey all these what these cartels and gangs do, because otherwise their lives get threatened and nobody helps them. So it's a very complex situation. I think the government of India has to work with other governments, but we cannot trust them beyond the point. The Canadians and the Americans right now, given the situation. Back to you.
All right. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. Slipping into a short break on that note. Much more on the other side.